When it comes to aging well, we hear a ton about supplements and the food that we're eating and all the things that we have to do. But what if there was a way to use, now stay with me here, there was a way to use energy and frequency to help us age better? And I'm not just talking about the woo-woo stuff of energy and frequency. I'm talking about science-backed things like homeopathy, also where we're focusing our brain, our mind. Today, I had to bring back one of my best friends, Allison Maslan, to talk about all the things, including homeopathy, how that can heal us, how that can help us age well, and what that has to do with things around vision and creating the life that we want. So we've got a lot of things that we're going to discuss today, but I first want to share that Allison, my friend that I'm interviewing, one of my best friends, she hates when I say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. She's in her early 60s.
Oh, man.
She's in her early 60s. She trapezes. She flies a trapeze. She runs an incredible business. She's active, living her dream life, and she's created lots of things in her life. But most of her most epic creations, the things that she's created and impacted the most with, happen in her 50s and now even her 60s. So lots of things I want to talk about today. You're going to want to lean in for this interview because she's got so much wisdom to share. So not only is she just a friend of mine, she's become a mentor and a coach in a lot of ways because of her wisdom. So lots to talk about today. Thanks for being here, Allison.
Oh, it's always fun hanging out with you, Natalie.
I want to start with homeopathy because most people do not understand what it is, what it's used for. And this was very much a part of your life for many, many years. Can you give us sort of an education around homeopathy and also like what this has to do with how we age and how this actually could support us more than we're realizing?
Yeah, thank you. I love talking about homeopathy. I discovered homeopathy in my early 30s when I was going through a really difficult time, going through a divorce. And I grew up in the Midwest. I didn't even know what the word holistic was. And so when someone said homeopathy, I was like, homeo what? And so anyway, I was referred to someone and it was life-changing for me. And it wasn't like taking an antidepressant or anything that was going to necessarily change me through drugs necessarily. It was just, it gave me a sense of confidence and balance like I had never experienced before, and gave me the courage to do the things that I needed at the time. And so I was so fascinated by it, I decided to go to school, and I ended up building my own practice for 20 years in San Diego. And I treated thousands of people, families, adults, children, babies. And I ended up opening the first homeopathic college in Southern California called the Homeopathic Academy of Southern California, which still exists today. And so homeopathy is a science. It was developed over 200 years ago in Germany by a physician named Samuel Hahnemann. And he spoke several languages. And to make money at the time, he was translating all these different medical books. And he learned that there was a bark from a tree called cinchona that was curing malaria. And he wanted to understand, how did this bark from a tree, how was it helping people heal from malaria? And he ingested it and he started getting the symptoms of malaria temporarily. And then he realized taking a little bit of something that created the same symptoms of the disease that you are taking helped to clear it out, because the body cannot hold two like diseases at the same time. So one cancels the other out. And this ended up having Samuel Hahnemann develop this system and science of medicine where we have over 4,000 homeopathic remedies now, and it's used by millions and millions of people around the world. It's based on the law of similars. By taking a substance in nature, plant, mineral, animal substance, that matches the entire state of what the body is experiencing, one cancels out the other. Homeopathy means same disease, so it's matching, whereas traditional Western medicine is opposite disease, allopathy, where you treat something that has the opposite effect.
So it's so interesting because a lot of people, they either don't understand homeopathy or they turn their nose up it and say it doesn't work. Supporters and believers are like all in, but there's a lot of people that aren't into it. But at the same time, almost everyone recognizes arnica as something to use. Why has arnica sort of been accepted, but it seems so far for everyone to understand the other areas of homeopathy?
Yeah, I mean, Arnica montana is a plant. And, I think that when we don't understand something, we reject it. And homeopathy is energy medicine. And so it's basically you take a substance and sometimes even a poison substance, but it's so highly diluted that you don't have the original substance anymore. You have the energy of it. And that's where people have a hard time grasping. And they'll say, well, there's nothing in there, or it's placebo effect. But we know that even for animals, it has dramatic effects. I remember there was a fire in a shelter for animals, and the vets called me because I worked with all kinds of physicians, cardiologists, oncologists. And the vet called me and said all these animals were suffering from inhalation of the smoke, and they couldn't breathe. Some of them were dying. And so we treated them with antimonium tart, which is a homeopathic remedy to help clear the lungs. It's used in pneumonia, and it healed these animals. And so there's just seriously, this is used as primary medicine in so many parts of the world. In Germany, it is actually practiced in medical school. It's a very complicated science. They say it takes like 20 years to really become a great practitioner because it's such an in-depth study. And it's really the study of people. And really finding that one homeopathic remedy that is a substance in nature. We're so connected to nature, but finding that one match that will help us heal, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
So as long as I've known Allison, anytime anything is going on in my health, body, whatever, I could say I have a pain somewhere or I have an itch, whatever, she's always says I have a remedy for that. And I would, it's kind of a joke with her, but she always has a remedy, and she gives me these little pellets, and she'll tell these super tiny pellets. I mean, you barely see them. And she'll tell me to take 2 of them or 1 and out, whatever. She gives me the instructions and I do it. And I don't stop doing the other things I'm doing, but I don't think there's ever been a time where she's told me to do the pellet where whatever I had going on didn't clear up. But I tend to not associate it with, it was because of the homeopathic remedy. Do you find that is common with people? Like, it's like they almost forget that they took it?
Yeah. When I was seeing patients, and I still keep up my certification, although I don't practice anymore except on friends and family. And I would take the case, and the patient would come in with all kinds of issues, migraines, psoriasis, stomach problems, and we would really get into the case. And that initial case taking, this is classical homeopathy where we're finding that, one constitutional remedy. And then they would come back for their follow-up, and they'd say, I don't know really if the remedy worked. I also been drinking more water, all this.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, okay, well, let's go back through your case. And we would talk about all the things, and they'd go, oh yeah, I'm not having that anymore. That's gone. That's gone, So the thing is that the body doesn't have a memory of pain. And so unless we're experiencing it, is it in front of us? We don't really think about it anymore.
Makes sense.
And so it really is, it shouldn't feel like a drug-like effect. In fact, it's so safe. It's because it's working with the body instead of against it. And that's why it's even safe for babies, pregnant women, and I was present at many births using homeopathy to help the mother through the birth. So it's quite a miraculous medicine. And, if it's not for somebody, they might be listening to this and think, that's crazy. Well, that's fine. And everybody has a choice. But I will say for me, I'm so grateful to know this, because I feel like that's why I am so healthy at this point in my life. And I'm grateful to be able to help the people that I care about.
As I'm asking you these questions, I'm starting to see why this is making a lot of sense in your personality and just why you're so focused on energy and vision, which I'm going to get into in a minute, because it really does link together. And it's also making sense to me of probably why you, when you realized it was time to get out of homeopathy for as a business, it made sense because energy wise, that might have been draining you trying to convince people and all of the things, and you had bigger things to focus on. So I'm going to ask you about that in a minute, but I don't want to skip over this part for people that sort of leaned into the homeopathy question, specifically menopause, perimenopause, symptoms that go along with that. Can you give us some guidance? Because there's a lot of people listening that are really struggling with menopause and perimenopause.
Yes.
And they've heard the hormone episodes, and maybe they haven't either found the right, plan for them there, or they can't use hormones, or they don't want to use hormones. And I know for many years, you were not doing hormones and you were not treating people with hormones. You treated them with homeopathy. Can you help us, that group of women, understand how you can use homeopathy there?
Yes, 100%. And I do want to just say one thing, that at the turn of the century, we had many homeopathic hospitals in the United States. And the largest monument to, or the only monument to a medical doctor in Washington, D.C. is to Samuel Hahnemann, the founder of homeopathy. It's a massive monument there. And so it's just when antibiotics came on the scene and, they couldn't make a lot of money in the pharmacy world on homeopathic remedies. I won't get too much into that there became this kind of, debate. But as far as menopause, yes. So I was right at the age when that study came out that said, don't do hormones because it can cause cancer. And my mom had ovarian cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer, and she's still here, 94 years old, but she had been on hormones. And so this was something that I, at the time, really wanted to avoid. And I was treating so many women. And basically, you treat menopause the same way that you would treat any other aspect of using homeopathy, is really documenting all the symptoms and finding the one homeopathic remedy that matches everything. So even in menopause, so for instance, Natalie, your hot flashes might come on at 3 a.m. when somebody else's are going to come on at 10 at night, or when they open their eyes and they wake up in the morning. So it is that specific. And I know for me, when I went through menopause, one day I was fine, and the next day I felt like I fell off of a cliff. And I started getting all kinds of anxiety and depression. I didn't know what hit me because we didn't really have an understanding back then of what was going on. And so I just had my case taken. I took a homeopathic remedy called sepia, which is one of the big remedies. Sepia, calicarb is another one. Phosphoric acidum is another one. All the remedies are Latin names of the substances. And anyway, sepia is what helped balance me, and hot flashes stopped. I had no problem sleeping, all of those things. Now, what I know now, I would have also done the hormones. I do hormone replacement now, but I use homeopathy for absolutely everything.
Yeah, you told me it saved your life, it saved your marriage, it saved like all the things when you were going through kind of the crazy pivot with menopause.
Yeah, it truly helped me through that, that whole period, and very quickly. So I'm super grateful.
I want to move on to sort of like energy and how that's connected there. But for someone that kind of leaned into homeopathy, if they want to like learn more there, because I know that's not what you do now, but is this something you could just literally go to Sprouts and buy homeopathic remedies? Do you want to find a practitioner? Like, what guidance do you have? Is there any books you'd recommend around homeopathy?
Yes. Yeah. So first of all, you can order a book called The Patient Guide to Homeopathy. It's been around for a long time, but it is a great book. And I used to send it to all of my patients before they would come in. And so you can get a quick grasp of how it works. And then if you want to go to a homeopath, make sure you go to a homeopath that either has these letters after their name, CCH, which means Certified Classical Homeopath. There is tremendous amount of training that is involved, years to be able to get this kind of certification. And the exam is like a bar exam. There's also another certification, which is RSHOM, and then the NA for North America, RSHOM. So both of those are great designations so that you know that someone is truly trained. Because a lot of people use the word homeopathy and interchange it with holistic, but it's actually a very specific science. There's thousands of books and materia medica and so forth and study on the science of homeopathy.
So,
It's truly fascinating.
so when Allison has helped me with things with homeopathy, if I'm telling her something's going on, something I'm feeling, she doesn't just say, oh, take a remedy, here it is. She would then spend 30 minutes to an hour asking me questions about it. And the questions to me were always so funny because they would veer from the symptom to things I was like, why are you asking me that? She would ask me all these questions. And after doing all those questions, she would put them all into her system and then say, okay, this is the remedy. And just to give you all one example, when I first moved to Arizona and I was so sad about leaving San Diego and I couldn't shake the depression around it, I started developing this thing in my throat. I had it was like a clearing noise I had to keep making. I had this thing, and Allison said, what's going on with your throat? I'm like, I don't know. And she started asking me a gazillion questions, and it ended up going into the whole Arizona conversation. And I remember telling her the things I didn't like about it and what I was feeling. And she said, well, how does that make you feel? And I was like, why is she asking me all this? But after she did all the things, she ended up giving me a cactus remedy of all things. It was a remedy. Was it called cactus? It was something like that. I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
And I did that and the throat clearing thing stopped. So that's an example of how it works. It was what?
And I came to that remedy not even really thinking about the Arizona thing. It just happened to be, interestingly enough. But again, we're so connected to nature. And so, you can seek out and find a classical homeopath. It's also really, really great for children, for all kinds of, ear infections and all the things that kids go through, fevers, great for teething, screaming babies on airplanes, things like that. It is just super, super healing.
Every time I bring up something to you, maybe a problem in life or a roadblock, opinion, you repeatedly say the line, everything is energy. What does that mean?
Well, that's the truth. I mean, Einstein said that everything is energy. We are molecules and atoms at the deepest level. We just can't see through our eyes. But our sight is formed through vibration. Our ears are what we hear is a vibration of sound. And so we're just translating it through the physical form. And this is the computer I'm looking at right now it's condensed energy into matter. And so everything is energy, meaning that what you put out, you will also receive back. So just as in homeopathy is treating like with like, law of attraction is the same thing. The energy that you put out there, you will receive back. It's like we are an energy mirror in a sense.
So I want to get a little bit into practical because I know I'm starting to understand that because I've been around you a lot and I happen to read a lot and I'm mindful of that conversation. But I want to bring it to a few practical things that have actually changed in your life since I've known you, many of them, and some of them before. For example, Allison, who had built a tremendous career in homeopathy and before that in marketing, she's had many different businesses and careers. She, from scratch, really built a business scaling company, Pinnacle Global Network, from scratch, from that place of idea and energy and frequency. Can you kind of give us I know that sounds a little maybe weird how I said that, but like, where did that even come from? Because people are always saying things like, I'm too old or I'm too late or I can't do that. And you did this really, I mean, you started this more in your 40s, but in your 50s is when it really expanded. Can you kind of walk us through that and how that connects to energy and all these things that you say?
Yeah. Well, I've always been a serial entrepreneur. I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. And so when it came time for me to make the shift with homeopathy, I loved it. But like you were saying, I was working with people that had severe depression, schizophrenia, cancer, all that. And over time, it's heavy. And so I wasn't sure what I wanted to do next. And I was always following my passion. And actually, it was my husband who said, why don't you just put it out to the universe? And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And I had always, for many years, really since the 80s, I had evidence that if I would visualize something, then it would manifest. I didn't know what any of this was. I didn't understand the science behind it, but I was already living that way. And so that's what I did. And I started journaling about it. And I said, okay, I'm not sure what I want to do next, but show me some signs. And then people started asking me, hey, Allison, can you teach me how you are building all these businesses? It just seems so easy to you. How are you doing it? And so I realized, wow, they didn't, it seemed complicated to them. Plus, when I was helping people with homeopathy, they were getting well. And now all of a sudden they had a new lease on life. And they're like, I don't know what to do next. And I said, well, what's your passion? What do you love doing? Well, you love horses. Well, you could create a horse training business, and this is how you go about it. And I could see the path ahead of them that they couldn't see. So I started to get frustrated because I'm like, gosh, there's so much that people can create. Okay, I'll help them. And so I started coaching one-on-one. I wrote my very first book called Blast Off, which is helping you to turn your passion into a business. This was back in 2008. And then I realized, okay, this isn't very scalable. I can only help so many people myself. There's only so many hours in a day. And so why don't I build this team of CEOs that have built very successful companies of their own? I knew the power of mentoring for having mentors in my life. And so it just really evolved from there. And I just kept thinking, gosh, we're making such a transformational experience for these business owners. What if we could expand that? So I started holding the vision of this global enterprise, helping thousands and thousands of CEOs all over the world. And so every day, and I can share the process later in this interview, every day I would visualize that. I did this morning, and it's just the people, the opportunities, the situations have continued to come. I mean, you've been seeing it over the years. We've grown dramatically. Not to say that we haven't had challenging times. There's been many in 17 years. That's how long we've been doing it now. But it's really been from holding that vision, feeling it, seeing it, believing it, expecting it, living as if, that it all has really manifested.
Hey there, if you're finding value in this episode of Midlife Conversations, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button and subscribe. And when that little bell pops up, you want to hit that. That way you are notified of all new episodes so you don't miss a beat. Also, you subscribing and liking helps others find this content. And this allows me to keep growing, keep getting amazing new guests for you, and to keep sharing. So I talk a lot about the importance of focusing on possibility versus problem, opportunity versus circumstance. And you truly live that, and you literally have a formula for that. But before we even get into the formula, I want to just, if you're okay with it, I want to share a few stories that are really, really relevant for the majority of midlife women listening right now. For example, as I'm recording you right now, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching a video, you could see the background. This is the background of literally her second home in Zihuatanejo, Mexico. And I just want to share how that home came about, because this process you're talking about that you've used in your whole life is where this house came from. Can you walk us through just even the idea of it to what you're actually living in right now?
Yes. And you've been here many times, so you know the magic of this place. And my husband and I got engaged here 21 years ago, and we fell in love with it here. So we traveled back many times over the years. And during the pandemic, we'd come quite often. And we just thought, gosh, what if we moved here? What if we got a home here? And it seemed like an outlandish idea. And so we started looking at properties, and then we thought, you know what, this is going to be pretty darn expensive, moving out of the country, upending our life. I think, we're not ready now. And I remember just one day I was driving in my car, maybe 6 or 8 months later, and it just downloaded this thought of, well, why not? Do you want to wait until your 70s or 80s and then if you could enjoy it now. And so I went and talked to Mike. We were like, okay, let's do it. And so we found a realtor. We started looking around, and we kind of knew the area we wanted to be. But if you've ever been here, it's a small bay. So there's not a lot of properties available, and where the area we wanted to be, because we wanted to be able to walk into town, and we didn't have to want to drive, and we just wanted to be able to just be right at this amazing view. And nothing was available. And the things that we did look at that were further away, we didn't really like them. And then somebody.
But wait, I don't want to interrupt. At first, you were actually looking for something like a small condo. You were not looking for.
Yeah, we were looking.
Yeah.
Yes,
I want
exactly.
to include that part.
Just for the two of us.
Yeah.
A little house. And then this hotel that we had stayed at, this beautiful hotel called Casa Cacante, we walked in one day and they said, oh, well, have you seen the 7-bedroom villa that the owner has for sale? And immediately, ding, 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 I looked at Mike. I go, we're in big trouble. Because I knew once I saw that. And it was true. We went and it was just, oh my God, just to die for, right? So we walked out of there, and it was more than double the amount that we were thinking to spend. And Mike, my husband, has this math brain. He's definitely like a Rain Man. He's like, well, if we rent each room for this amount of money, when on the weeks that we're not there, and you consider 20 weeks, blah, 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 this will end up being a profit center.
Okay, but wait, hold on. I don't want to interrupt the story, but it's an important point here. Most people, if they think I'm going to go get a house in Mexico, a second house or whatever it is, they have their budget in mind. They have the small condo, they have the area. And then somebody says there's a villa, blah, 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 that's like way out of budget. Most people let circumstances stop them right then and there. Like it goes, oh, I can't afford it. Not our choice. Not what we're doing. So I want to point out this distinction because your brain automatically went into possibility and vision. I don't want to skip that because it's an important step there.
Well, I think the reason why, Natalie, is that we often make these things that we want bigger than us. They're not bigger than us. You are a human being, which is a powerful essence of you. You're bigger than that thing. The villa is not bigger than, I mean, it might be in size, but it's a house, right?
Because if Mike had not done the math right then, like, because he happens to like numbers and math, if he had said, like a lot of people's spouses would have said, we can't do that, we can't afford it, I know you would not have said, all right, you're right. You would have said, but what if we could? So this is an important distinction because I think because you and Mike happen to live in Vision, and this is what I really want to teach listeners, because people hear this and they don't know what to do with it because someone else stops them. So help us through that too as you're telling the story, if you wouldn't mind. So because it's important for people to learn how to shift that.
Yeah. Well, we're both entrepreneurs, and I feel blessed because we're both all into things. Now, sometimes that's sometimes it's not so great because we can just be woo together. But, we've always just both been very decisive. And because we're very entrepreneurial, we say, okay, well, then how do we make this work?
Awesome.
Instead of this can't work, maybe in the certain circumstance that we're in, but how do we get ourselves in the circumstance to make it happen? And I think that's because there always is a way.
Yeah.
I never, ever take no for an answer, and nor should anybody.
So your normal business right now, you are around business owners all the time. So you're around this entrepreneurial mindset of anything's possible. And like right now, my listeners, it's a big mix, right? Because I think the majority of people don't actually live in possibility. This is why what you're talking about is so important, because if people can take part of this and apply it to their life, it can make huge shifts. So the steps were sort of like you were in the idea, you knew what it was going to feel like. You both were enrolled in like, let's move there. You had this idea of a small condo. Somebody's bringing up something even bigger. You were in possibility. Mike's now saying, wait, we could now monetize this. So sorry, now continue the story. What happened?
So then what happened is we went to make an offer on this property, and we met with the owner, who was the owner of the hotel, amazing gentleman. And he said, I'm so sorry I can't take your offer because we're in negotiation already with someone. And of course I was like, disappointed. However, it was a gift because now we started looking at it in a completely different way. How do we find an investment property? How do we find a big villa that we could do team retreats at and be able to
Have Natalie
have
visit and
events
invite
there.
herself 10 times a year. Just kidding.
Exactly. And rent out to people for weddings and retreats and so forth. And so then we went back to our realtor and we started looking. And there was this one property that he said, I'm going to take you to, but don't get your hopes up, because the developers that owned it, they have never been wanting to sell this property. And the father with 3 sons, he was like in his late 90s, and he's just was refusing to sell this unless someone bought all the plots of land. And so we went there, and this is a property that had been built over 20 years ago, and it needed a lot of work. However, the bones of the property was absolutely perfect. And the view, the position of it, and 7 bedrooms up on a hill, completely private, just absolutely stunning. And so I went back and I just started doing what I always do. I started visualizing, I started journaling, I started seeing ourselves here, imagined how we would renovate the property. And my husband is amazing at design, because that's what he did in his last business. And so that's what we went back to San Diego and we started doing. And we talked to a couple people and they say, that he is never going to sell. So many people have made offers. Well, interestingly enough, we got the call and they were willing to take the offer. And we got it with half of the price of this other one that we had looked at. And anyway, it was just, for me, just what I've always known.
Yeah.
And over the years I've seen is when you hold that vision and you just believe that somehow it is going to come about. You don't need to know how. You don't need to get into your analytical brain and start overthinking it, because then you'll convince yourself why it won't work.
So this is so important. And there's 2 other stories I want to sort of bring up, 2 different ends of the spectrum here, and share how this works for you over and over again. And then what I want to do for those of you listening is I want to actually break down the process so you can start applying it, because just holding the vision does not mean Allison doesn't work for it. It doesn't mean that she doesn't do the steps, but it's leading from the vision first, where I think most people more often than not lead from pain. So something's not working and now they make a change. Where you, and I think I do this maybe not to your level, but I'm working on it, start from vision. So I'm always thinking vision first and possibility, and then it leads to that. So I'm going to walk through that process, but just a kind of a funny story. So I was going to actually visit Mexico with Allison, and me, her, and her husband were all on a flight out of Tijuana that we thought was at like 7 a.m. So we all get to the airport early, Tijuana, 3 of us. And we go to check in and they tell us that we have the wrong day. Literally, we have the wrong day. We're all packed up, ready. Dogs already taken care of, time, like all the things. And we are about an hour south of San Diego, which is 3 hours south of LA. And Allison does not go into, oh, well, shoot, we have to come back tomorrow. Her husband did that. She goes to, wait, there's a flight leaving LA. And I think it was like 4 hours from whatever, or not even, maybe it was 3 hours. It was very cutting it close. It was like 3 hours. Yeah. And she goes, there's a flight leaving LA in 3 hours. Now we're 3 hours south of LA. So do the math there. Okay. It's not really going to work. Her husband instantly, nope, not possible. We're going home. We're coming back tomorrow. Me and Allison go, no, we can make it.
And I was all excited.
Yes.
I was all excited because we were all packed, right?
Yes.
So mentally, I couldn't wait to get.
I was excited too. So you and our energy was, let's do it. And we didn't even think about what if not. We just thought, what do we have to lose? Like, let's go. We're going to make it. It's happening. There's flights. So we, from our phones, buy the tickets for the LA flight. And her husband, not happy with us, gets in the car. He's the one driving. We're driving up there. Alice and I are sure about this. And we're a little second guessing, like, oh boy, Mike's mad at us. Mike's not talking to us the whole ride there. So we make the flight. I couldn't even believe we made the flight. We literally within, like, they were closing the doors. Like, we get on and they're closing the doors. Like, there was no extra time to spare, but we made the flight. And I think a lot of that happened because we were so committed to the feeling and the vision around that. So that's like just like a little story there. But the big story that really stands out is ever since I've known Allison, she's the founder of Pinnacle Global Network. And she was working very hard. Like she still works hard, but it was like you were working like 80 hours a week hard. It was a constant, you were growing, you were helping people, but it was a lot. And one of the visions Allison had, and this is about a year and a half ago, I remember specifically, was you were in the weeds of it. It was growing. You were happy. You weren't complaining about it, but you thought there's got to be a way to have this multiply without it being more work for me. I mean, you kept saying that. There's got to be a way for it to multiply without it being more work for me. And despite all of the growing pains and stress and all the things that you would really stick to your routine of holding the vision and being in the vision. And I watched one step at a time completely change in her business and her business multiply, like literally all in a year and a half. It was already scaling and growing, but like fast track multiplying because you doubled down on vision and the feeling, not on what do I need to do. So there's really something to be said for that you do it on a small scale and on a big scale.
Yeah. Well, I have to just go back a little bit just to share, because I don't want people to think that, oh, well, she's already been successful, so it was easy for her. You know, I was a single mom for 12 years. I raised my daughter on my own, and we had no money. I mean, I literally, through my divorce, I had nothing. And I remember one day I was meeting a friend for coffee and I had zero money. And I was going through all my purses. You ever done that?
Oh, yeah.
Kind of emptying them out for change. And I thought, you know, this is going to be embarrassing. I'm meeting this person and I don't have money. And so I pulled out all the coins and I literally put them at the register, and it was like $3. This was before Starbucks stuff. I was like $3 and something for what I needed. And I actually pulled out of my purse the exact amount of change that I needed in that moment. And I remember, to me, that was a sign that, Allison, everything you need is going to be there for you. So why worry about it? Just have the faith that whatever you need is going to show up. So I think that just this idea of not trying or hoping or reaching, you've got to shift to a level of knowing, expecting, because you're going to manifest what you expect. And maybe it'll take you a little time to get there. I know it's hard to go, well, how do you believe if what you're seeing in front of you isn't matching that vision, or everybody around you is telling you that it's not possible? I've had so many people tell me what my dreams would never work. And the key is that you kind of have to have a blind eye to it. You sort of pretend like you don't see it a little bit and really hold the vision of what you are creating. And I have a saying that make decisions from where you're going, not from where you're at. Because that, again, it's just energy that you're seeing. It can change. Just like the picture in your mind is energy. So that your mind doesn't really know the difference of what is made up in your imagination and what is real.
Allison and I argue about age a lot, and let me explain. I share my age a lot. I'll say I'm 54. I like to share her age. She doesn't like that I share her age. And when the reason I say we argue about it, I'm just kind of kidding, but we have like a disagreement around it, is I say, well, I think we can define what that means. Like, to me, being in your 60s or 50s can be whatever we want. But Allison has a different approach. She says, I'll let you tell it. Every morning when you wake up, you say what to yourself?
It feels so good to be 35.
Explain what that means.
And I don't.
Yeah.
So I am very comfortable with my age and aging. I have no problem with that. In fact, I wake up just with such gratitude that I'm breathing and that I'm healthy. You know, as we age, it's a gift, right? But I also remember what it felt like to be 35 years old.
Yeah.
Like, if you close your eyes and you can take yourself back and remember what that felt like. Well, again, because the body doesn't know the difference, you know, the same brain wires fire, whether you're in the real situation, whether I'm 35 or not, my body remembers that. So it's like the best vitamin supplement hit that you could ever give yourself is to take yourself back there. And so I don't live chronologically. Like, if I got to fill out a form, yeah, I'll put my age on there. But biologically, if you put two people together in their early 60s, I'm going to tell you, you're going to see a very different, picture. So I don't let a number define me. I plan on living for many more decades. I plan on flying on the trapeze for a long, long time. And I just think that state of mind, it's not because I'm denying or I'm embarrassed by or anything like that. It's just that I want to age feeling youthful.
Wayne Dyer says, never let an old person move into your body. And I love that quote because
Yeah.
that kind of it says what you're saying here. Like, don't let the meaning of what we associate negative with aging move into our body. Like, we can decide not to let that happen.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. They say age is a state of mind. And I think that a lot of times we think that aging means, oh, we're going to get aches and pains. I better get a house with no stairs, all those things. So we decide, and whatever we decide, that is going to be the reality. And there are so many scientific studies that actually prove that. There's a woman that did a study, and I can't remember her name, but this was actually in the 80s, where they took several men that were in their 70s and 80s and put them into kind of a contained environment for a week, and they pretended everything was at the time when they were young, like let's say in the 1930s, something like that. So they had pictures up and Time magazines, everything had to do with that time in
Right?
the world that they remember. They watched TV shows and all kinds of things from that time, and that they were only allowed to talk as if they were there. And they had tested all of their vitals and all kinds of things before going into this week. And towards the end of it, they were throwing their canes away. They were playing touch football. They tested, their eyesight got better, their hearing got better, so many other things. There's a study that came out in Israel recently where they tested the blood, and the immune system improved when people started talking more positively. So the power of the brain, as we know from neuroscience, can literally change our physical makeup. So everybody has access to that. Why wouldn't you utilize it?
One of the things about Allison's Mexico house is there's a gazillion stairs. How many stairs? I think Mike counted them. What's the amount of stairs to get down?
Well, just to the bottom, to get to the bottom floor is about 150 stairs, and then there's 3 flights up.
So she lives in this incredible house. It's like a villa that they rent out. So it's very resort like, but so that many stairs, and they plan to live there forever. Like they're not. And she said, we thought about when we were modeling, like, should we do an elevator? And they said no, because you said you did not, why even put that thought out there that you wouldn't be able to do the stairs? And it forces you to do that.
Yeah, and we run them. Yesterday we ran the stairs up and down twice, and then the great thing is you can walk into town and have some amazing food. And as you know, you got to walk up some hills before you even get to the 150 stairs. So it's good exercise for sure. But look, I sit at a computer, I'm running a business, I'm on calls, I'm on meetings, all kinds of things. And so, the body can grow old quickly, because if you don't use it, you lose it. So I want to be in a situation that forces me to be active, because you just feel better.
I want to walk through your specific process, like your vision crafting that you created, because this works no matter where people are in life, whether they're just trying to get out of their funk, whether they're trying to grow their business, whether they're trying to heal their body. I've watched you do this with literally so many things. Before you walk through that process though, there's people fall into different camps, right? So some people are listening and they're really into this. They're like, this is good. Give me that. I want to know how to do that. And there's some people that have they have all the reasons why something like that wouldn't work. Can we just address those people briefly? Like people that are going into those exercises with this won't work.
Yeah. I mean, when we say something won't work, then we really narrow our view of possibility. And maybe it won't work for you. Maybe this isn't for you. And that it really is okay. Everybody has a choice. But I'm always of the camp of why not give it a try? Because I think you'll be surprised. And the thing is that when you open your eyes to possibility, you start seeing solutions and you start downloading ideas that you never thought of before. All of a sudden, somebody comes into your space or someone introduces you that opens up a new
Yeah.
opportunity. And, or you think you've all had the experience, you think of somebody and all of a sudden they call.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't happen. It's not a coincidence. That's the energy that you're putting out there. So it is very much work for me. And I'm so excited to share all of this, Natalie, because as you know, I've got a new book that's going to be coming out. And really, I have infiltrated this through, I don't know, infiltrate's not the right word, but I've applied this to every single aspect of our company. And I've worked with literally thousands of CEOs on this process for every aspect of the business. And it really can work on, whether you have a passion of doing gardening or you want to build a big enterprise.
So let's walk through the process. And I want to share, I've been doing this. I've learned it from you, and I don't have it down perfect, but just even if I do part of the process or a faster version, it changes my whole day. Versus if I just wake up and go to my phone and start, which I'm not perfect at this. There's definitely a day or two a week I don't do it, and I pull up my phone and I'm in a bad mood. So, but can you help walk us through the process and like sort of where this came from?
Yeah, so this came from, for years I had done pieces of it. I had done journaling or I had done visualization, but I had tried meditating for years and I'd always struggled. I have very ADD brain and I would just get impatient. And like you, I feel like I need to be doing something or creating something. So I had a hard time sitting still. My husband would just drop right into a meditation, no problem, drove me nuts. And so what I started to do was kind of mix all these different processes together. And I would do it on vacation, like visualization, journaling, listening to uplifting talks and music and so forth. And I would feel better. And then I would start to see magical things coming into my life, like this house here, my house in San Diego, how I attracted my soulmate, my husband. That's a whole other story that I could talk about. And so I was on a trip one time and I'm like, what would happen if I did this every day? I feel so good. Why would I not commit to doing this every day? And so I did. And I have been. And so I call this vision crafting. And so basically, when you wake up in the morning, the first step is that you turn on something that's uplifting immediately, because your brain forgets. You might have done this the day before, but now you're going to start thinking about the things you're stressed about, something that went wrong the day before, or something you're worried about on the day ahead. And so that immediately, and it could be anything. It could be Wayne Dyer that you mentioned. It could be Esther Hicks. It could be something spiritual that you love listening to. It could be uplifting music. Doesn't matter. And then, you go brush your teeth, do the things that you do in the morning really quickly. I get back into bed. I've got my cinnamon tea that I love. And I start listening to this. And then I start to journal. I journal first what I'm grateful for, because gratitude is the fastest shifter, and you can't hold fear and gratitude in your mind at the same time. And there's so many things we can all be grateful for, even in a difficult time. I'm breathing. I'm grateful for that. The sun is out.
A comfortable bed, anything.
Yeah, my dog, are the dogs that we have, and they give so much love. So that all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, I'm feeling good. Now I write down what I'm grateful for as if. I'm so happy and grateful that I have attracted 100 new clients and they are all thriving and their business is growing. I am so happy and grateful that we've been able to get the land next door to our property so nobody can build next door.
So even with health, you could say like biopsy is negative, or that this was all clear.
Yeah, which I did. I had a whole experience there, and I did the same process around that. Kept seeing myself healthy. So then you close your eyes. I turn on some uplifting music. I have a vision crafting playlist, and I start seeing all the things I'm grateful for as if they're happening now. Then the next step is I write out my intentions. Okay, what do I want to see happen in my personal life, my finances, my business life, my relationship with my husband, my family, my friends, my clients, so forth. And I write it out. And again, I know this is a little bit of time consuming. If you're in a rush in the morning, sometimes you can just read it out loud. That's another way as well. But there is power in writing it because there's an energy that is released onto that page. And then I close my eyes again and I visualize these intentions as if I'm in it. It is the world I'm living in now, to the point that now my body starts getting excited. And I get into the feeling space. This is the key, because the feeling is what creates the vibration. You can have a low feeling, low vibration of depression, or you can have a high vibration of joy and exhilaration. And so it takes a little while in the morning to start building up that high vibrating feeling. But once you do, now I'm starting to get excited about the day. Now I'm like, I can take on anything. And so then what I do is I write down, well, wait, let me see the evidence that this stuff is already happening. I call these glimpses, little glimpses that, oh, well, we want to get the land next door. And hey, how interesting that when we were at dinner, we ran into Andy, the realtor, and he talked to the developer, and they're interested in parceling the land when they wouldn't do that. But I just wrote that in the journal, and now this is happening. Or that we attracted our COO for our company, and he's exactly right. All of the same qualities that I journaled. These are the glimpses. So it gives you that, okay, it's happening. But the key here, Natalie, is it's not about only being excited once you manifest the thing. Life isn't just about getting the thing, it's the joy along the way, it's the unfolding of it. You know, when you listen to a piece of music, you're not waiting for the last note, you're enjoying the whole symphony and the experience. And so at this point, now I've primed my brain. Now all those pesky thoughts, they're gone. Now I close my eyes and I really get into that meditative state. And it may be 2 minutes, it may be 10 minutes, it may be 20 minutes, it depends. But it just feels to me like I have this direct connection, and it feels like I'm drinking sunshine. And I just feel so good that even if something bad were to happen that day or challenging, it's like, okay, let's figure it out. But had I jumped out of bed and was just dependent on what came to me in my email, then I'm going to react instead of responding.
Yeah, I'm quickly reminded of that on the days that I do that, because I sometimes I'll say, okay, I'm going to do the whole process, but let me just check this really quick, or let me do that, and it throws me off. I think I told you about that app I downloaded called Opal, which you can restrict it and make it so you can't. And I definitely
I'm using that now too. It's great.
But I'll notice it, so I have to just completely avoid, or it throws me off. If you, on those days that you don't have the time, I know your answer is going to, I think I know what you're going to tell me, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The days that you don't have time, what do you do?
Well, I make the time, but I can shorten it. I will do it like a 10-minute version where I won't do all the steps, but I absolutely do it. And even if it's just a shortened period of time, or sometimes I take 2 hours, like on a Sunday when I can really get into it. And I'll just say this, once I started doing it every day, it was the momentum.
Yeah.
So now you're creating this flywheel of energy. So things start happening faster.
Wow.
They were happening before, but now the momentum of this going. And so I'm so much happier. I don't want to miss it, you know?
What happens when the day takes you off of that? And I know this has happened, so help us with how you handle that. So like you turn on the news, or somebody's like, I know you don't really watch the news, but something happens where it throws you off, like whether it's something with politics or your business or like anything, it throws you off. You're in the spiral is happening, the momentum is happening the wrong way. You start getting into circumstances, because a lot of people, they start the day with the right intentions, and then that happens. Do you try to stop it? Do you give it, help us with that rebound? What do you do?
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not in a state of Pollyanna. I do know what's happening in the world. You can't not, right? If you're on social media, it can be in your face. And I have a lot of empathy, so I feel things. And so that's more the reason that I am really committed to doing this work, because what you focus on expands. Now, I will say that sometimes it can feel powerless because you want to make a difference. And so what I remind myself is, if I get off track, I am no good to anybody. And I know my purpose here is to change the world through business. So if I can help thousands of business owners step up to the highest version of themselves, then that is my dent in the universe. If I am flat out of emotions of everything going on, then I'll just wallow in that, and I will get stuck. And hey, I've done it. And I also, what I do is, if there is something that is bothering me that I have seen that's, troubling, what I do in my mind is I really visualize putting love into this situation, sending a solution to this situation. I donate, I post, I do talk about certain things and how I stand. But I also know there's a difference of being aware, and there's a difference between plugged in to the point where it takes you down, and then you're not a solution to anybody.
Do you have kind of a snap out recovery plan? Like, so if you find yourself there, or if somebody do you have like just like you have your vision crafting in the morning, is there any, like, you're like, okay, I'm in this spiral, I'm not in a great place, I'm going to go do these things. Like, how do you snap yourself out of it?
Yeah, I'll pull out my journal immediately and I'll write, I call this flip switching. I'll write the opposite statement down. Okay. But I've gotten to a point where your emotions are your barometer. And when you don't feel good, you're out of alignment, and you're only going to continue to see more of that.
True.
And so your idea is to get yourself back to center. So it's gotten to the point with me, Natalie, that I don't even really have to write it down. I just know, because I feel bad, that this thought has come in. So I catch it and I say, you know what? I'm not going there.
Yeah.
I'm not going there. And I also understand that that's how the brain works. It just starts sending you all kinds of thoughts. And in most cases, in a lot of cases, a lot of the negative things that we think about are things that we didn't create.
Yeah.
It's passed on to us through our DNA, through past generations of living in scarcity, living in fear. I know my grandmother had lots of anxiety. And so, I'm sure I inherited a lot of those things. And so I have to say to my brain, I'm not going there right now. And then the thought goes away.
It's so, I know how powerful it is to stay in good feeling. And just like you said, we don't want to be, head in the sand all the time. But one thing that I think I'm going to share this because I think it would help everybody, is I've worked actively at stopping being a source of sharing something that could create that unease in somebody else. So for example, you see a video on social media that is disturbing and upsetting. And the tendency is to send it to your friends, or to send it to I've done this to you, or you've done it to me. And I've really been aware the last few weeks, especially, not to do that, because I think this upset me. Why am I going to now put that on Allison or put that on my husband? So I've made this decision that I don't want to be the creation of a bad feeling. Because I do think it's important. Like you said, what good are we in the world if we're just feeling bad? That's not fixing anything. It's just feeling bad.
Yeah. And again, I do want to say, it doesn't mean that I'm not aware.
Yeah.
And that I'm not able to help in certain ways and support behind the scenes. But yeah, passing that on is, it really, I mean, we can talk and we can discuss our misery around the situation, and we might feel better in that moment because now we have someone that is aligned with what we're thinking. It doesn't fix the solution, and then you just feel awful, and then you start obsessing about it. And then you can't get the thing done that you needed to get done that was going to really make an impact. So
I don't know if you've noticed, Allison, lately,
perfect at it.
Lately, any video I send you is something like motivational, or I'm like, oh, this was inspiring. I've just committed that I'm not sharing. It's either going to be funny, it's going to be pets, or it's going to be motivational and uplifting. I just don't want to share.
Lots of elephants lately. Lots of elephants.
I love it. So one thing we didn't talk about at all, and I don't want to spend too much time here because I know my audience is not following for this, but it is important to bring up is business and the idea of scaling. You have aside from the logistics, because obviously I'll link places people can find you where they can learn your scaling method, and we're going to talk about that in a second, where you can find more. But one of the things that really stands out to me of how you have grown business after business, and especially Pinnacle Global Network, is from teaching people how to operate from this space. And you have this idea of infinite scale, which really comes from bringing in quantum energy, bringing in vision thinking. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because this really does set apart your way of teaching versus other strategists.
Yeah, well, the strategy is super important. And we have a whole method called the Scale It method that we have strategy and tools for every area of the business. So vision and cash flow and marketing and sales and all the things. But because I'm also using these quantum physics strategies in my own life and business, I would be remiss by not sharing this with others too. So I have over the years at events and so forth. And at first I thought, oh, people are going to think this is just a little out there, but people wanted more and more and more. And these are very
Well, and it's the
successful
truth. It's your truth. It's what works. So.
Right? It is my truth. So I cannot not speak my truth. So then we started experimenting and applying them to different areas of the business. Like I have a process on how to attract your perfect hires and through mind mapping, and also creating a vision committee within your company and having everyone doing the vision crafting and vision boards and things like that. So now you have a whole team behind your vision. And so there's a whole binary equation around that where that really multiplies the force of energy behind what you're doing. There's so many different ways. If you think of an orchestra, for instance, when an orchestra comes together, you have all these different musicians that have spent years creating their craft, and they all have a unique skill set, and they each have different instruments with their own unique sounds and their own unique brilliance. But they come together, and you hear a start of an orchestra, they come to the 440 hertz vibration. That is the orchestra tuning to get on the same wavelength. That's 440 vibrations per second that they all meet. And then they come together to create this beautiful symphony of music. Wow. Well, it's the same idea with a team. So everybody coming together and creating their vision, which is their version of the A440 hertz, and plugging into that is just, there's so much power in that. So it's taking all these not little, but powerful ideas of energy and fusing them into the customer experience, getting your higher purpose messaging out there, all around fusing strategy and energy. And the results of our clients, what they have said is, not only has their business, some of them gone from 2.5 million to over 100 million in revenue, to I'm just a different person, Allison.
Yeah.
This has changed me as a human being. I'm a happier person. I'm loving life. And to me, that is the highest compliment. Best results
so
ever.
Good. So good. I love that it's like you were healing people individually when you were doing homeopathy, right? And then you healed yourself in a lot of ways. And now what you realize is that if you could help business owners and entrepreneurs and founders that are really conscious and aware, you can help them grow and scale. You're impacting even more people, which helps everybody feel better. So I love I never really tied together the homeopathy and this until this conversation, but I can see how it all really works together.
Comes full circle.
Yeah.
Homeopathy, you're getting to the core of the issue. You're not treating the outward symptoms. You're getting to the core of the issue. And the same work with the mentoring. When you're fixing a car, you're not banging on the outside of the hood. You got to open up the engine to see what the challenge is. And that's what we do with companies. And so it's really healing from the inside out, but then also seeing the energetic impact that you can make.
Okay, I know Allison's on her third book right now, and you've got, if you all are listening and you're like, I want to learn more about this. I know we didn't jump into a lot of the business stuff. There's a lot more there. She's got several books. Can you share about what the link you created? Because I'm going to actually, if you go to midlifeconversations.com/infinite, so midlifeconversations.com/infinite. I'll put this all in the show notes. You have a way they can pre-order your new book, scale it, and actually get the vision crafting process. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I'm so excited. We put this together for you, specifically for your audience. So when they go to that link, they'll be able to pre-order my new book called Infinite Scale, which is everything that we've been talking about. And that's not going to be coming out for a little while. So in the meantime, we're going to send you a copy of my new book. So we will mail this to you. And I'm in my second book, Scale or Fail. And that was a Wall Street Journal bestseller. It's an amazing book that is, it was endorsed by Barbara Corcoran and Damon John of Shark Tank. I will also send you the exact steps more in detail of the vision crafting. So we'll send you that as a PDF. And then I also created a meditation that
perfect.
You'll be able to listen to when you wake up to take you through the process.
Oh, so good. So good. I'm sure I'll have Allison back. She is literally one of my best friends, and we always have so much to talk about. As I see her up leveling in life ahead of me, I'm always like, oh, how do I get to the next level? You're such an inspiration to me. And I always have so many questions. And as I see you doing this, I'm like, I've got to share this information. So thank you for being here again. I will put all this in the show notes. Everyone, if you go to midlifeconversations.com/infinite, you can look at that whole bundle. I highly recommend it. Whether you're growing a business or not, I think this is super beneficial to you. Like I said, I'm applying what I learned from her with the vision crafting. I'm not perfect at it yet, but it's a process, and it's definitely changing my day, my mood, my results, all the things. Thank you, Allison.
Thanks, Natalie.